Hey everybody, C-Note here, and welcome to DOPEamine, the show that is like hobbits, dangerous at short distances. So today on the show, I wanted to talk about emotional abuse, specifically female to male. And I want to be clear that emotional abuse is not about women specifically being difficult to men. It goes both ways, and there is a ton of overlap when it comes to emotional abuse. But specifically, I wanted to talk about female to male because there are some specific things that involve specific signs that are female to male, but there's also a lot of challenges that males face in not being so outwardly expressive. They have difficulties with support systems and difficulties getting out of this situation because there's biological reasons. You want to stay involved in this relationship. You want to have access to sex, things like that, that are keeping men from reaching out and getting help in these situations or leaving these situations. So there are some unique challenges, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to kick out the intro and let's do this thing.
Drums, please.
H-I-L-L-Y, north, west, southwest, side, right, yeah, now here it is.
Okay, welcome to the show. And today I wanted to talk about emotional abuse because it is a topic that is near and dear to me. It is something that has affected me in my past, something that has been an ongoing issue now because I feel like I'm dealing with a current a complex PTSD aspect of that, and it's coming into my current life, and it's something I need to explore and discuss. I'm not going to talk about it in my life in a very specific sense because I don't want to make it sound like it's something where I'm trying to call out someone. That's not what this is about. But it has helped me learn about it and learn about ways that I can help you, if you're someone that's dealing with this, to get out of this situation or to properly assess it and seek support. Now, I've had an episode about this in the past. You can look for it in the list of episodes. It's called Emotional Abuse. But this one's specifically about female to male emotional abuse. And the reason for that is, like I said in the intro, there are specific circumstances that make female to male emotional abuse a tricky situation. And not that either one is difficult. We're going to talk about male to female emotional abuse at some point as well. And there is a ton of overlap. Abusive people are abusive in a lot of the same ways. It involves a lot of shouting and name calling and belittling and boxing people in and isolating them and keeping them distant from people. And so a lot of the times, unless I'm referring to her or she specifically, these are things that can manifest from men to women and at the same way that female to male abuse occurs. So, one of the first things I wanted to talk about is some signs of abuse. And there are some very obvious ones. If you see someone who is out at a coffee shop and, his wife is referring to him as like, you're always so stupid, you're an idiot, and he's just not responding, he's just taking it, and he's not necessarily, fighting back in any kind of way. Those are obvious signs. He's a guy that's typically probably walking on eggshells. He might be a little bit more meek in terms of his behavior. He might just not be a testosterone-y kind of male and may not be seeking that kind of emotional outlet. But he also may be, respectful of women, and sometimes that becomes an easy target for a female abuser. A male that is not as domineering. He's someone that is a little bit more emotionally secure. And sometimes someone who is emotionally secure can set someone off. That can be a trigger for someone who is not so emotionally secure. That insecurity is probably one of the main reasons that an emotional abusive situation will occur. So if they have an intense insecurity or low self-esteem, they'll try to project that on you and try to keep you within the framework that they're comfortable with. So they'll try to keep you within the relationship. They'll try to keep you within your house and, and keep going to them for support. And that's one of the things that becomes difficult for a lot of people, is realizing that this is something that occurs in really, really intense, intimate relationships. This occurs with family members. This occurs with spouses and significant others, and even parents to children. That intense emotional controlling behavior. And it is a controlling thing. It's about trying to keep someone in your world because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of the insecure, the fear of them leaving you. And that could be rooted in something that they're dealing with when they were younger, or previous relationships where someone left them and they feel incredibly insecure about it. And some of the signs of abuse will come out in ways that are, she may accuse him of threatening to report him for assault, or falsely accuse him of assault of her or the children, threaten to take the children, and they may threaten to kill themselves or someone else. They'll often make the male in the relationship feel like he's crazy through gaslighting. They'll set up a situation and then they'll say something completely different. They don't typically own up to their responsibilities. They don't own up to the things that they say. And they'll do what they can to minimize the abuse, or at least to minimize the perception of the abuse. And they'll often blame the victim of the abuse. Like, the reason I say this is because you're like this. Something like that. And it's an unhealthy sign of a relationship in general if there's a lot of blaming and not taking any responsibility for what you're going through. But if it's consistent and it's going on all the time without any real indication or any real way of there is no real blame there other than the other person continuing to berate you, it is a very clear sign of someone just trying to control you and keep you within that safety zone that they really want. Part of satiating that insecurity is keeping someone isolated and locked down. So they won't let you talk to your friends. They won't let you talk to, especially friends of the opposite gender. Sometimes they won't let you connect with family or even your mother, or let you leave the house. You have to ask for permission to do things. You have to ask for permission to spend money or, go anywhere. And that was kind of a situation that I had to deal with. Was at some point, they wanted to control my money, my spending, where I went, and they would typically someone will try to monitor you when you're out as well. So they'll kind of feign security. They'll loosen the leash. They won't necessarily let you go. They'll say, "Hey, go have a good time," but within minutes or within an hour, they're texting you all the time. They're trying to check in on you. They're trying to see when you're coming home. They'll ask you what you're doing. And if you don't respond, then it becomes a very big thing. And one of the problems that occurs here is that it's almost normalized to expect this kind of behavior, especially in women in a relationship. A lot of men talk about this like they're expecting women to be this way. And we forgive this kind of behavior. Now, men are also guilty of this behavior, of being insecure and constantly checking in and doing this sort of thing. But I think it's also more expected of women to be that way. So a lot of men don't see that as a sign of an unhealthy characteristic or an unhealthy person. They just see it as, this is just how women are. So I guess if I want to keep getting laid, I got to deal with it, which is an unhealthy perspective for the male to have in terms of that perception of women. So that needs to also change. Other signs of abuse that I have written down here are playing mind games, being very blatantly confusing and gaslighting, and making the man feel guilty for anything that they say or do. So, and especially misconstruing words on purpose. Essentially, if you try to say something, if you say like that's a silly reaction or that's a silly behavior, they'll be like, "You think I'm stupid?" and just kind of go into this crazy rant. It's probably not the best example, but I think you know what I mean there. They may go to the lengths of falsely obtaining a restraining order or withholding affection, or even stalking and like checking your phone and doing all that sorts of things, especially things like checking your phone. Those are kind of considered normalized behavior, and it's difficult, again, from both sides to look at the reality of what's going on, because in society, there's a lot of codependent music on the radio. There's all sorts of comedy skits and memes and discussions about people, or even bad advice from friends who are saying, "You should check his phone. You should check this." Instead of having a healthy conversation with someone, they'll start to kind of stalk your behaviors and check on you instead of directly connecting with you and asking what's going on. And usually, it's a mix of insecurity. It's a mix of poor communication and not having good examples of what a positive relationship is and should be. So, that kind of abusive behavior will manifest that way. And some of the ways that you can start to, actually, before I go further, let me say some of the reasons they stay is because of certain threats. They may feel like if someone says you do this, then I'll leave. Like, it doesn't always work that way. They'll emotionally manipulate the situation to try to convince you that you're the problem and therefore guilt you into staying. They'll do it you'll stay to protect your children, or you'll stay because maybe you're dependent on the abuser and you feel emotionally dependent on the abuser. Like, I might not exist if how am I going to live without this person? And that can be a really big problem as well. Other reasons that men stay in particular is, point blank, it's about sex. If you're getting regular affection from them because of your compliance to them, then, in your eyes, you may see that as a good situation, but in the long term, it's an abusive thing and it doesn't feel very good. And you may not see it in the moment, but over time, it's going to add up and it might be a hard thing to leave. Biologically, we're like, yes, this is great. We're doing the evolution thing. But imagine if you accidentally have a baby with that person and you're stuck in a very difficult situation. So male victims of emotional abuse should research ways to leave the relationship if possible, seek outside support, seek ways to get people to really listen to what you're saying, and have them almost listen to your behaviors as opposed to listen to what you say, and have them try to connect some of the dots between how you are over time. If you go to your friends and you're always complaining about this person, or they start to notice that your energy is lower, you're not the same person, you're barely able to come out, and it just seems like a case is mounting from the other person that you should leave. Definitely take that advice as best as you can. Sometimes it's best to leave the relationship, especially if there's physical abuse, to leave the relationship unprompted. Have a plan, leave the situation, and maybe leave a note or some way to communicate with them indirectly afterwards, or have them call them on the phone afterwards. And again, it depends. You have to be you got to build a resolve over time. And that's some of the hardest parts of this, is that it's a slow process to leave sometimes, to even realize that you're dealing with abuse, that you need to kind of iterate some things sometimes. You need to test behaviors. You need to see how she responds to certain things. Try to give in and maybe be the perfect boyfriend or husband for a while, see how that clicks. And if she has a very, very positive reaction to that, then test the opposite, be more yourself, or be more of an extreme version of who you are in the way that is purposefully going against some of the ways that she says. I'm not a trained therapist. I'm just saying this is one way that you could try this out. It's a little manipulative, but again, it's about testing things. And it's about seeing it's about gathering information, essentially. I know it's a little tricky. It's tricky ground to walk on, but it's about over time and slowly and carefully just kind of seeing what the differences are in certain behaviors. And just keeping a list of things, try to keep evidence of the abuse for possible legal actions. Tell others about the abuse and try not to retaliate. Don't try to argue back to them or, try to essentially make it worse, because a lot of these abusers are really good at manipulating and you're likely going to lose. That's why you have to be careful not to, tell this person you're planning to leave, because they could try to manipulate the situation and convince you to stay, especially after you're positive that you're going to leave. You just need to do it. You need to have the conviction. You have to have a friend there to support you and be there for you. a whole bunch of other things, but I kind of failed to write some stuff down. So I'll have to revisit this again in the future. But particularly for men, it can get really, really tough to deal with this sort of thing because there's not a lot of information out there about it. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. And I'm going to try to coalesce some information in the future and do a follow-up to this. But I basically just wanted to present this idea so that I can get the conversation going. So if you have any additional insight into some abusive behaviors that you've seen, specifically from women to men, and some things that are maybe societally provoked as normal, and is not helping the conversation, I would love to hear that as well. So, if you're dealing with any kind of emotional abuse or domestic abuse of any kind, there is the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. And there's also a child abuse hotline at 1-800-4A-CHILD. And those two things are important. You're listening to this podcast, and hopefully it helps you kind of, assess what's going on. But, try communication first. And if you're not able to connect with this person and you feel like you're seeing this pattern over time of your behavior degrading, and you're not feeling like you're connecting with this person, and they're just trying to there's not a sense of love, but it's a sense of control, then you need to start making those changes. So again, I don't have the master class on this topic, but I'm going to do a little bit more time, take a little bit more time to do a little bit more research, pull some things together, and share some of my story and share some of the situation with you guys going forward. But I wanted to present this idea and see how you guys felt about it. So if you've got anything in the questions, comments, leave something in the comments, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And please feel free to reach out to me on all the social channels at Rival My Design. And please leave a review. That'd be amazing. And don't forget to check out the podcast course. If you're someone who wants to start a podcast, go to cnotes.thinkific.com and you can check out that course. And that's it. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining me today. And we'll follow up on this conversation in the near future. But for now, that's what I got. So see you guys later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching and or listening. If you thought this was a dope show, but wait until next week because it's always going to get better. That's kind of the point, isn't it? And if you would like, please go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts, and please leave us a positive review. Or, if you have a problem, let me know, and I'll try to fix it too. But if you're watching on YouTube as well, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit all the comments, all that good stuff. We appreciate the love. We appreciate you guys. And, we're going to keep doing it for you and do the best we can. So thanks for listening. Go to howmynameschristian.com or DOPEamine.life. Check us out, or cnote.media, to learn how to make your own podcast and videos and go from there. So I'll catch you guys later.